Welcome to the You Can't Afford Me podcast, where we skip the fluff and dive straight into the grind. Real entrepreneurs, real struggles, and the unfiltered journey behind success. Let's get into it. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on another episode of the You Can't Afford Me podcast. This is another nonprofit spotlight episode for us. This brand, since I've lived in Richmond, I've seen this brand everywhere. I've actually been wanting to sit down and speak with someone from the organization for quite some time. It just seems like they always have something cooking. They have a lot of big events that go on here in the Richmond, Virginia area. So today we have Forrest from Sportable today. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Absolutely, man. So give us a quick rundown of you and your role and what Sportable does.
Yeah, so I've been with Sportable for over 9.5 years now. Started back in 2016 when we just had 4 people deep in the office. And
Nice.
We're up to like 16 full-time staff, some part-time staff now. My role has changed many times over the 9.5 years, and working for a small nonprofit, wear many hats and do a lot of different things. But right now, I'm currently the director of strategic partnerships. So I kind of glean on my experience with the organization, running a lot of our programs and kind of living out the mission through my role and supporting who we serve to kind of use that experience in conversations with our partners, whether it be community partners that support our work, physically with, programming things and expertise in different areas that we may not have on our team. And then also more specifically now, and like our corporate partners and people in the community that support our work through financial resources, grants, sponsorship, stuff like that. So
Beautiful.
That's kind of what I'm doing. But for those who aren't familiar, Sportable is an adaptive sports nonprofit. So we serve individuals with physical disabilities and visual impairments. If you're familiar with like the Paralympics, we do those types of sports for athletes with physical disabilities and visual impairments. Think like amputees, people with spinal cord injuries, cerebral palsy, blindness, low vision, and kind of everywhere in between. Anyone that struggles with something physical. We provide adaptations in different ways to stay active and recreate. And we have, I believe it's around 18 different sports. And depending on how you look at it, you could go up to 30 based on the iterations we might have within an individual sport. So we have like youth and adults. We serve all ages, starting as early as 3, depending on the sport. Wow. Just like we all, grew up playing sports. You start them young and get them in, build those motor skills and, hand-eye coordination, all that good stuff. And then
is golf one of those 18 sports?
We recently added adaptive golf.
Okay, yeah. I gotta get involved on that.
Yeah, dude. I started. I watched the episode with George and Beyond Boundaries, and heard you talking about golf. I recently started playing.
Nice.
Last year, joined Lakeside Park Club.
Love it.
And have been just grinding. Yeah, played twice over the weekend. So
nice.
I'd like to get out there sometime.
Yes, for sure.
But yeah, adaptive golf is really cool. It's kind of trending in the States right now, and the USGA has started to do an adaptive open, and so we as we have some golfers on the staff, and we have partners in the First Tee, Greater Richmond, as well as the VSGA, and so we're like, everyone was inclined based on seeing, on social media, you see something trending and it's in your industry, you kind of don't want to be falling behind in that. So we were all kind of like, how do we work together to do this? And so we started, and actually another podcast guest of yours, Pat Uhazy, and Indoor Golf RVA, were a part of our first couple clinics because, their facilities are accessible, climate controlled, top of the line technology, and you have options on those simulators to do fun games for someone who may only be able to putt or chip or do something basic if they're starting to do it. And some of our athletes they play golf on a regular basis and want to play a 9-hole round, and so those, for indoor golf spaces have been really, advantageous for us in our program. And then we since started to develop some adaptive golf at the First Tee School Street location over at the Elson Redmond Memorial Range because the facility is accessible. It's a great range. They've got the mats and whatnot.
Great facility.
And depending on the weather, the grass and whatnot. So that's a new and growing program. And it's kind of, how we've approached a lot of our work is like we see something that's popular or trending, or our athletes are expressing interest, and if we find that there's a nice, formula with a community partner that, because golf's not cheap,
No.
as we know. And, there's a lot of great adaptive equipment. There's, paragolfers and verticat carts that help individuals with mobility impairments play the sport, and try to stand you up if you're not able to, and play it in the traditional way. And then there's a lot of different club, ways that you can manipulate the club depending on how you swing, to make the sport accessible. And so having VSGA and First Tee to support what we're doing and be a part of it kind of made us feel good about kind of taking that next step. And then through the clinics, we knew the interest was there. And so
love it.
So over the years, when I started, we had about 12 programs, and it's anywhere from like outdoor sports, your cycling, your kayaking, your rowing, archery, that sort of stuff, to your indoor like team sports. So we have like wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby.
Wheelchair rugby.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. If you've ever, want to learn more about that, there's a documentary called Murder Ball that follows the United States Paralympic national team along their journey to the Paralympics.
I've never heard of that.
It's pretty gnarly. It's awesome.
I mean, rugby guys are already insane on their own rights.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sort of like a sport. So, most of the athlete population that makes up the rosters in those teams are quadriplegic, and so they have a higher level spinal cord injury in the C section of the spinal cord, and it impairs their extremities more than, say, someone with a lower level spinal cord injury. So they may not be able to utilize their fingers, depending on if it's a complete or incomplete. And there's so much nuance that I've learned over the years. My background was not in, studying the human body or disability. I've kind of learned all of this through
So
work.
Let's go back to that. What were you doing before Sportable?
So Sportable was my first like full-time career position coming out of grad school, but I went to JMU for sport management and did some internships at the Flying Squirrels over a summer. I did an internship in junior golf with the Hurricane Junior Golf Tour. It was based in Jacksonville, Florida, and that was probably the most attractive part. Just as someone who I was turning 21 that summer, and I was like, let me get out of my normal stuff and go experience something different. So I did that for a summer, and then went to the Center for Sport Leadership program at VCU, which is a nationally ranked and internationally ranked graduate school program. It's also only 1 year, so it was attractive in that space. It brought me back home. Got to live in the city and work in the athletics department at VCU and facilities and event operations. And growing up as a VCU basketball fan, my whole life, I had a key to the Siegel Center, which was pretty cool. And got to see the back end of everything. And for facilities and events, they don't just do their athletic programs. They also do like all the Virginia high school state basketball tournaments and graduations. And Chance the Rapper was the homecoming concert that year. So it's kind of cool to like meet his sort of operation and see the back end of that. And
that's awesome.
That was 2015. So it was like in his like
he was just
meteoric rise at that point. So it was really cool. And that program, our CEO, Hunter Lehman, is an alum of that program and was teaching a sports business class at the time. And so I was the facilities and event operations graduate assistant, and our classroom was in a athletics facilities building. So every morning I would get in before everyone got there, open up, set up, and then help the professor get their presentation or whatever set up. And we would always just, converse about current events and sports, and developed a rapport. And then when Sportable had a opening come up, one of my classmates had already done an internship and got hired on, and we were close. And so they had me in mind when that position came open, and I was doing an internship at the Raceway with their operations team that summer of 2015.
So your whole adult life has been sports.
Yeah, sports. And that's my hobby too. Obviously, we talked about golf. And I still play like wood bat softball and floorball, like floor hockey through River City, sports. And then a lot of what I consume is college and pro sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, the whole nine. So
So who's your favorite college team besides VCU?
So college football, I have to go JMU, just as my alma mater, and they've had a lot of growth over the years since I've been there. Grew up kind of like in Virginia Tech, just because of friends and family that may have had an affinity there. But
I grew up hating Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Go Wahoos.
Yeah. Hey, respect. Virginia's got to support each other. I know that's a little different. And and then VCU basketball, because my dad's worked at the university for a while.
Nice.
And we always used to go to games growing up, like way before the 2011 Final Four run. And so got deep ties. Eric Maynard's my favorite player to come through there. And it's cool to see he was on the OKC staff that just won the title. So that's really cool.
Which, by the way, I saw this on another podcast. This was probably the first NBA Finals I didn't watch, like the final game. Like, I just wasn't interested in these two teams.
Yeah.
And then in a podcast I saw earlier today, they were talking about how it needs to be studied, how I don't even know the proper term, like OKC just wasn't excited after they got the championship. It was like a very melancholy response.
They didn't know what to do.
Yeah, they couldn't pop open the champagne bottles or anything.
Kids these days or like young adults aren't drinking as much. Yeah, and it's interesting in terms of like where we come from and watching people.
They said it was one player on OKC. Like as soon as the clock hit, he jumped up and starts going crazy. Then he turns around and realizes none of his teammates are acting like that. He's just like, okay,
we're gonna bring it I wonder if it's like part of it's like a foregone conclusion because they were so good, But it was interesting. I'm a Knicks fan, so it was a little hard to watch.
Oh, Knicks had a run this year, man.
Yeah, but it's been cool. You got to be thankful for where we're at.
Yeah. Knicks are talking about getting the head coach from women's basketball.
Dawn Staley.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a wild move.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, you look at her, I'm like, that's New York right there.
She's established. She's got, I love her personality and obviously her resume. It'll be interesting with someone without any coaching experience at that level, and with a contender now with Tatum and Halliburton both out for the year with their Achilles injuries. But we could talk sports for days, man. But it's cool. That's that's why I stuck with our org so long, is because the work that we do and who we serve. When you think about all the opportunities that I had growing up to access and play sports and pick up a ball and go to the park and shoot hoops or play soccer or whatever is so easy, and it's just not the same for the communities that we serve.
Take those things for granted.
Yeah.
What's the relationship? Because do you guys put on the Monument 10K each year?
No, so that's Sports Backers.
Okay.
And so we collaborate with them to make sure our athletes have a place in that as well. And so whether that be the establishment of a wheelchair wave for athletes who utilize a racing wheelchair to propel themselves, along. And a lot of people get it confused because the bigger marathons like the Boston Marathon or the New York City Marathon, they'll have the racing wheelchair wave, but then also allow hand cycles. So that's like a geared bike almost for what our athletes use to cycle and are allowed in that race. And then the racing wheelchairs are all manual, like pushing, and it's kind of like it's basically running, for our athletes to have lower limb impairments that may not be able to ambulate, like walk, jog, or run. But we also have that, with our visually impaired runners, walkers, or joggers. It's all, whatever you want to do and however you want to move, we're wide open to that in our programming, and try to, work with you along the way to meet your goals.
Gotcha.
Whether that just be doing it and completing it in general, or making a PR, if you have aspirations to compete and try to make it to the Paralympic level, we try to work with you as much as we can locally through our resources. And then if we're not able to facilitate you past a certain level, we try to put you in contact with those that can continue on that pathway. So
nice.
It's been cool, but it's one of those things where you're like, man, we want to do whatever we can, along the way. And if we can't do it, we try to put you in contact with someone that can. And that's where a lot of our community partners come into play, is because there's only so much we can do. Our offices are in the Sports Center of Richmond building, SCORE, over by Hardywood and the Diamond. And that's kind of where we operate, where we store our equipment. We do some programming there with like peak experiences and do some adaptive climbing with Beyond Boundaries and Peak there. George has been a huge part of that, who you've had on the pod.
Nice.
He's awesome dude. I mean, I was running the rock climbing program along many others at that time, and we worked with George heavily, and he's just a great person and very knowledgeable in that space. So he's a big reason why adaptive climbing is a thing.
How many people are you guys typically serving on a yearly basis?
Around 400 through our ongoing programming. And the way our programming works is it's like once a week for an extended number of weeks. The average is around 8 weeks for a program, and then depending on the sport and the season, time of year, and whatnot, that affects the frequency of how often those 8-week programs happen. And then if it's like a team where we participate in like a domestic league, like wheelchair basketball or rugby or tennis, for instance, it might happen more frequently because the season might be from like September to April. So you're having practices weekly, through that, and then tournaments happen on like a monthly basis. And depending on the proximity of those tournaments and when they happen, you might have 2 a month, and you might do double headers where a team that's relatively close to you might come for the weekend and play a couple games.
Nice.
And it's because we don't have enough infrastructure or participants in Richmond area to have like a local league.
Yeah.
So we, create teams here through the Sportable umbrella, host weekly training sessions and practices, and then organizations will host a tournament, and you'll either host your own or travel
Gotcha.
to those. And, we actually just hosted the national championships for the National Wheelchair Basketball Association, which is basically the NBA for wheelchair basketball.
Wow. That
in
was
the
here in
States,
Richmond?
the last 2 Aprils. And
wow.
It wasn't really possible until the Henrico Sports and Event Center was built over at the old Virginia Center Commons Mall in the Glen Allen area, so they had the infrastructure to host. And it was back-to-back weekends. So the NWBA has a bunch of divisions, starting in juniors all the way through adults, and then they have women's and military divisions as well. And we hosted the juniors and adults, and each weekend has 3 divisions. So it's like the kids from 13 and under, called the prep division, and then 2 high school age divisions. One is like the lower tier, almost like the NIT, if you think of it in college basketball analogy, and then the championship division, which is the top 16 teams. So, and then adult has 3 tiers, 3 through 1, 3 being more the beginner, like introductory level, 2 being sort of the intermediate, and then 1 being the top level, where you might have Paralympic level athletes that play for their hometown city wherever they live in.
Nice.
And then just other talented players that maybe have played in college and whatnot. And then they use sort of like a promotion relegation system, sort of like European soccer does, which is cool. So, yeah, we hosted that this year in April. It was 104 teams over both weekends. Ooh. And so it was a heck of a lift.
You guys are doing that with, you said 15, 16 people on staff?
Yeah, and that was a major effort in collaboration with Richmond Region Tourism. So obviously with all the teams coming in from all over the country. Yeah. Working with our tourism bureau here locally was a huge effort, and they were a huge part of that bid process. They do that, like, when you think Richmond Region Tourism, they're always bringing in different events, whether it be sports or, cultural events, like anything to shine a light on RVA, and and especially not just the city of Richmond, but all of like the municipalities around too. And then with the Henrico Sports and Entertainment Authority and Dennis Bickmeyer and his team, were a huge influence, because that's the building that we operated in, and the team at the Henrico Center, we're one of the few events in there, as well as the Special Olympics that do their state games for basketball in there. Trying to make sure that the facility was fully accessible and sort of accommodating to the athletes that were coming in for that. And it was really cool, because we've had our wheelchair basketball program for a while, and I've gone to this tournament in Louisville and Chicago and other areas, and got to see like how well, or areas for improvement. And so we got to kind of put our own spin on it and really elevate it to a really big level, which is cool. And they actually just announced it's going to go to West Monroe, Louisiana, which is super random. But yeah, that was like an opportunity for us. It's our 20th anniversary this year. We've grown, as you can tell, going from 4 staff to now 16. And it's really like rapidly been growing, I think, really since the pandemic. Interestingly enough, I think we really pivoted a lot in terms of understanding our value to who we serve through the pandemic, and not being able to be in person, and trying to stay in touch. And we really learned a lot about what we mean to our athletes, and not only the health and wellness benefits that we have through just staying active, but the community that it builds, and the social benefit to our athletes, finding representation and shared experiences with other people with disabilities through the programming, and just kind of building confidence and a rapport, and just the big word is community through our programming. So
why do you think things are growing? Is it more of a trend that we're seeing with people with disabilities wanting to get into active sports, or is it just the time? Like, what do you think it is that's causing the rise?
I think it's a myriad of things. I think the interest is always there, but I certainly think the representation that you see in just general media and on social. Obviously, DEI had a really big influence on what people were seeing and wanting to support us financially, like transparently. Like a lot of those initiatives were super beneficial to us because we could lean into our existing and prospective partners to be like, hey, you want to do a better job of diversifying and making sure your team and your employee base feels represented. And so we can do like lunch and learns with those companies and talk about disability etiquette and talk about the work that we do, offer volunteer opportunities for those organizations, and then just in coverage of the Paralympics. We just had Paris last year, and so the lead up, and then all the coverage that Peacock and NBC had of all those sports, and then all of your major outlets like ESPN and Bleacher Report and everything on social was somewhat covering those events too. And so just the mainstream kind of seeing what's out there from an adaptive sports aspect, but also like the level, that's the best of the best. I
got to referee one time when I went to Longwood University, and they hosted, I guess it was a round of the Special Olympics for basketball, and you hear that off top because we're used to watching NBA, WNBA, college sports and stuff like that. But reffing and seeing those guys play, I was like, holy crap. Like, I think that I'd go out there and get cooked by those guys right now, man. Like, it's insane to see the athleticism.
Exactly. And I think that's a big thing. And that's a big reason why we wanted to bring not only the national tournament, but like any event that we host. Not only is it an opportunity for your athletes to compete locally, because otherwise you have to travel. The closest teams to us in basketball and rugby are like Fairfax, like DC, or down in Raleigh or Charlotte, and then from there it's beyond. Sometimes you have to fly to tournaments. That's costly, first of all, and then you're not really exposing your local supporter base to really what it is. And local practices only do but so much to expose people to what that competition looks like. And so to be able to bring some like the MJ, the GOAT of wheelchair basketball, was in Richmond the last 2 years in like the history of the sport. And so we were able to expose like people that support us, that volunteer with us, or even the up and coming aspiring generation of wheelchair basketball players got to meet them and like play one-on-one and do a clinic and all that kind of stuff. And so that,
I'm glad you said the MJ of wheelchair basketball, not the LeBron of wheelchair basketball.
It's up for interpretation, right? And we don't have to get into that, right? And so it's just really, really cool to, like you said, you gained an appreciation and understanding of like the level and the dedication and the work that goes into being that good. It's not, it doesn't come easy. And so, and then, the way that, our athletes are able to play the sport, to see it up close and personal, you get a further appreciation and understanding of it. And
absolutely.
That's so important for people to really understand and appreciate our organization and the work and then, where our athletes are coming from. But ultimately, it's all the same motivation. It's like staying active, staying healthy, or being competitive. It's all encompassing depending on who you talk to. And we like to think that a lot of our different programs can accommodate, either aspect. We've got our weekend warriors that just want to get out and socialize and stay active and have fun and do a little bit of everything. And some are hyper-focused on being very competitive in their sport, and our programs can accommodate that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the opportunities you guys have for volunteering. So are you guys looking for people that were former college athletes and things like that? Are you looking for the everyday Joe who just has a appreciation and love of the sport? And what are the different opportunities you guys have for people that want to volunteer?
Yeah, I think it's all encompassing across our program landscape. We have so many different sports, and each of them kind of operate differently depending on based on the volunteer needs. So our cycling program, for instance, we go out onto the Capitol Trail via Dory Park for our recreational program. And because we have so many people with different disabilities and ability levels based on their where they're at and participating in the sport, someone might be going out and doing like 15 miles in the hour-and-a-half program.
Sheesh.
Someone might do like one. And so we often pair volunteers on a 1-to-1 ratio. Typically you might need to have your own bike. We usually have a handful of upright bikes in case a volunteer may not be able to transport their own to the program or doesn't have their own, but like knows how to ride and can do it. And so like that's one where you go out and you just ride. You might there might be an instance where a tire is popped or something happens, and the expectation level to support that is not necessarily 100% like, oh, you need to learn how to you need to know how to change a tire. It's not that way. It's you kind of just get some guidance on like, hey, this program ends at 7:30, so only go out as far as you know that you have time to come back in and get them here before it's too dark and you're good to go. But that program, you really get to ride a bike and like exercise and develop a rapport. And for those multi-week programs, we prefer someone to be able to commit, at least like 70% of the time, because you start to develop a rapport with that individual athlete that you're paired with. And there's some familiarity and comfortability there. And that's one example. But like for a wheelchair basketball program, a lot of basically anything that we do, our athletes are the ultimate goal is for them to do that independently, to participate independently. But there may be areas of support like, pairing up and riding alongside an athlete where you are supporting them in that way, but you're not like pushing people or like guiding them like hand in hand to support. It's really independent. And so for like wheelchair basketball, it's a team sport. People that are volunteering in that, maybe you're participating, you're an extra number in the game, and so you get to play wheelchair basketball. But or you're like, very knowledgeable in basketball, so you're interested in coaching or being an assistant coach. But if you're going to coach, like you need to commit. It's a long season, so like you kind of need to evaluate where you're at and your interest level and capacity to do that. Or like we don't own our own gym, so we're at like a middle school or wherever, and we are taking a Sprinter van with 20 basketball chairs, and they all need to have the right tire pressure to have our athletes to be able to have their chairs operate as efficiently and to the level that they're supposed to as possible. So we have to go and pump all the tires up at the beginning of practice, and bless you.
Thank you.
It's a lot, and so unloading and assembling all the chairs, pumping them up and getting everything ready takes time and effort. And so if we have a couple hands that are able to get trained up on that, once practice starts, there might be, minimal things for you to do other than play or rebound or help run drills. But, it's all kind of depends on the sport. Swimming, we may need, an athlete might need physical support based on their progression level of how comfortable they are swimming. And, or if it's like more of an aquatic therapy space, all those athletes may need physical support. So you're kind of just guiding them and working with the coach in that program, like along what the curriculum is that day. So it depends. And then we have our one-off events like competitions where you might just come and volunteer for the day. And that might be more appropriate for like your corporate volunteer group or your high school team group, or you as an individual that may not have the capacity to commit to 8 weeks at a time or whatever the length of the program is. You can come out for a day or multiple days depending on your interest and availability, and run the score clock at a basketball tournament or ball run at a wheelchair tennis tournament, or run the check-in table or run the hospitality area, whatever it may be. So we have a little bit of everything for anyone. And, those that are in corporate settings that have, volunteer matches or paid volunteer leave, we love, working with those organizations because it may result in a donation, based on the hours that you work. And we're a nonprofit that thrives on sustainable, funding across the board. So any ways that people can support us through that.
Do you guys have one big event each year, like that's your main flagship for fundraising, or is it just consistently throughout?
Yeah, so for fundraising, we have both. So we have like program-centric competitions or events that are primarily just opportunities for our athletes to compete, but we'll have like sponsorship opportunities alongside those to make sure that we're not purely just spending money on it. We want to break even or even see it as an opportunity to raise money over what the expenses are. And any sponsorship of an event is typically like a recognition opportunity for our supporters, but the dollars basically go to our overall operating, like unrestricted funding, towards our overall budget. And then fundraiser events, we do a tailgate event every year, and it's kind of changed since the pandemic based on how we were able to do that. So now it's more of like a peer-to-peer fundraiser where people can kind of throw their own tailgate parties.
Oh, nice.
Either at their office or in their backyard or wherever they want to do it essentially, and or people can just kind of do like an online fundraiser through a fundraising online platform. So if we encourage any supporter of Sportable that is really passionate about our mission and wants to help us raise funding for continuing on our trajectory of doing what we do, to participate in that and post on their socials and try to encourage people to donate here and there. And then usually it culminates in like an athlete tailgate. This past year it was at River City Roll, where we
Nice.
invite all of our partners and sponsors and athletes and people that have given to that ongoing fundraiser to come out and just celebrate our
Nice.
mission and get together and just have a good time.
Love River City Roll. Rob
Yeah.
Long was actually, I think he was the first guest of this season on the podcast.
I didn't watch that, but I was looking at the playlist of all the different
Dude,
episodes.
that was one of my favorite episodes we've done. Rob,
I need to
Rob's
go
an
back
awesome
and
guy.
listen to that. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because you've been, as we wrap up, it's rare someone at your age stays with an organization as long as you have 9 years, and especially with your variety of backgrounds and different sports arenas and different states in Florida and all these different places. What is it about Sportable that keeps you there? Because we can see and hear the passion in your voice about this program. Why are you so passionate about this organization?
Yeah, it's hard to answer all in however much time we have, but it's really the people and the mission. We just had a retreat for our advancement team recently, and I think we talk about the stresses of your career and job, but what's easy for us when we get stressed out about our work is just to go out to a program and like interact with the athletes, and it's so you glean what it means to them to have access to this. And over the years, as we've grown our programming portfolio and the frequency of the way that we do things, there's always more. And then now that you're with social media and interacting with other people in our industry, you see what else is out there that we could possibly be doing, and we're like, man, it's just easy to stay motivated around like what we can be doing more here in Richmond through the Sportable umbrella. And there's so much more to do. Obviously it takes resources and people and capacity to do that. But we have a really clear vision around what our future looks like, and that allows me to stay, motivated. The organization's always created opportunities for me to grow in my career and have new positions, new responsibilities, take on new challenges. So like moving out of programming and getting into the development side of thing and fundraising and working in the corporate space and using my sports interest and what professional and college and other sport organizations do to work with corporate America and businesses to do sponsorship and engage people. I'm like leaning on that to tailor similar experiences that those people may already be doing with the Squirrels or the Kickers or whoever they support in town, to then come into the adaptive sports space and almost create equitable experiences for our athletes. So when I think about our tournaments, I'm like, how do I run this in a way that's equitable to what our athletes see in the able-bodied sports space and provide a similar experience? It shouldn't be different. It should be as similar as possible. So how do we have like a hydration sponsor, and like we got these like cool like core hydration bottles at the tennis tournament. So every court has a cooler, and it's these like really nice water bottles. And so it's been really cool to have that autonomy and that freedom to kind of grow and try and lean on my experience and my interests and also glean on what our athletes want to see in their programming and events and try to make it possible. And I think Sportable has really been really good at creating an environment to do that. And like I said, I think there's always more that we can be doing. Right now, we're really leaning into doing what we do really well and building that out so that we're in a place as we grow further and push towards what we envision for ourselves in the next 5 to 10 years. We're prepared structurally to take on that growth.
Love it.
And our leadership team is doing a great job, and our team is just awesome. So I'm happy to be where I am and excited for what the future holds for us.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome, man. Well, if people want to connect with you guys, they want to volunteer, they want to come out and support, they want to come check out the events, how can they get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, so our website is sportable.org, and the Sportable is spelled Sportable, all one word, .org. All the information is there. We've got a great social team as well on the marketing side. So if you follow us, we're at Sportable RVA on all platforms. That's our handle for there. We're primarily on Facebook, Instagram, and a little bit of YouTube here and there. But Facebook and Instagram are our primary ways that we kind of communicate on social media platforms. And
you guys would kill on TikTok. Y'all got to get on TikTok.
Yeah, I know. I personally just have never downloaded it because I know it would suck a lot of time. Not that the other ones don't already. But now that we know TikTok's here to stay, I guess for a little bit, that might not be a bad play. And we've actually just grown our marketing and events team so that we have some people that are dedicated to that and our other marketing efforts. Whereas I, had the accounts on my phone, and I'd be at a program, I'd try to snap and do stories as much as possible.
It's now a full-time job.
Right. Yeah. I was looking at y'all's website and, how you guys benefit small businesses and others that, don't have that capacity to do or take advantage of really what is available at your hands. And we even struggle with just kind of what our content is. How do we really shine a light on all that we do when we have events and sponsor deliverables and all that? How do we make sure our mission is clear and what we do is clear to our follower and our supporter base? So,
well, I think a shouting for you guys, like hearing the fact that you guys have a developed marketing team, like most nonprofits. I serve on the board for 2 nonprofits right now. Most nonprofits don't put that much time and effort into it, but I think you guys are seeing the benefits of that because the more active you are on these channels, the more seriously you take the marketing efforts. It's just how it works. More people know about you and they're willing to support you.
Right. And like people oftentimes may pigeonhole us into an adults only or youth only or wheelchair sport only because of what they see, if they're not interacting with us consistently and they're just seeing what's on social. So we've gotten that feedback and have expanded the team to make sure that we're doing a better job of telling our story. And it benefits us in so many ways, from just awareness and funding resources, and then people knowing that they might belong, as one of our participant athletes and finding us. So, yeah.
Love it. Well, man, appreciate you being on the show today.
Likewise, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys on the next episode.